Batman Arkham City is one of my favorite superhero games and delivers a strong sequel to the Batman Arkham series. The story tackles a larger scale setting and a wide variety of characters and does a great job of balancing all of this in execution. There's a lot about the story to break down, so let's start by talking about the setting of Arkham City.
Shut Arkham City down. It's out of control.
Arkham City is a very chaotic setting, and the game has done an effective job of portraying that. The open world is constantly filled with criminals, and it's like you're entering an active war zone. It's difficult for any political prisoners to find safety within the city. The city is restricted enough for Tiger Guards to feel like this overarching authority that controls how the city operates. I think it's a natural evolution from Arkham Asylum, since that setting focused on the mistreatment of patients within the asylum, largely because of Quincy Sharp. Arkham City takes a different approach, one that Quincy Sharp believes he can tangibly get away with.
Strange came to me back at the asylum. He told me he had friends. Powerful friends. The sort of people who could make things happen. All I had to do was turn a blind eye to his experiments and work on my campaign. He said his friends would ensure that I won.
Who are they?
I have no idea. I never met them. They funded everything. Money was no problem. All I had to do was set up Arkham City and put Strange in charge. It made perfect sense. The scum of Gotham needed to be punished. It would be my legacy.
Arkham City is left open for criminals to run around, leading to absolute freedom within the city limits. It's an effective way for Hugo Strange and Ra's al Ghul to make their case for how criminals behave when they're allowed to operate, and why it's better off to kill them, which is one of the ways in which Batman is challenged by the story. But the setting of Arkham City ends up expanding upon why cruel punishment doesn't help anyone, which is something Arkham Asylum initially tried to explore. By letting the criminals roam free without trying to help them, they're encouraged to act on their worst traits, especially after the mistreatment many of them would have faced in Arkham Asylum. Simply punishing people and not looking to reform them simply plays into the cycle of violence. Why would anyone truly want to change if they're just going to be mistreated when punished for their crimes? Why would they believe in a better way if those in power decide not to show them one? And through the execution of Protocol 10, Hugo Strange and Ra's al Ghul are shown to be no better than the criminals they're targeting. They're willing to resort to fascistic means to bring their vision to life, resulting in the political prisoners we see in the city. Anyone standing up to these criminals are left at risk of injury or death. Any criminals with the capacity to change lose that chance entirely, many of which would have people mourning for them and possibly resorting to criminal behavior in retaliation. In the end, they're simply enforcing their will through violence and intimidation, which makes them villainous as well. And I think Arkham City does a great job of providing commentary on the dangers of these beliefs and how they can play into the cycle of violence.
You cannot win. I, Hugo Strange, am your successor. I have saved Gotham.
Hugo Strange has an interesting motivation for Protocol 10 and demonstrates a unique challenge to Batman's mission. It's clear that Strange is envious of Batman's reputation as Gotham's savior, evident through his frequent mentions of it and his vision of becoming that savior for Gotham. And given that Batman has a long history of cleaning up the city and taking on supervillains, it's tangible as to why someone like Hugo Strange would become envious of Batman's recognition. Even with someone so well versed in criminal psychology, someone with Batman's accomplishments can easily overshadow Strange's expertise. And this leads into one of the ways in which Batman's ideals are challenged, since his mere existence invites resistance from dangerous people.
I have a question for you. Before my arrival, this city was drowning under a tide of filth. Have you ever considered that all this is your fault? Your presence creates these animals. Like germs, they spread. You created the environment that allowed the germ to mutate, to become stronger. Look at the Joker. Would he even exist if not for you? It must be depressing. All your sacrifices, and yet, you are the one to blame.
While Strange is projecting when he mentions the filth of Gotham since he's also part of the problem, his point becomes more interesting to consider when you realize that it applies to him the most. Hugo Strange became a supervillain born out of envy towards Batman. One can easily question if he would ever exist if Bruce never chose to be Batman. And he may have a point regarding the other villains, since some of their plans are built out of retaliation or an obsession with Batman. While on the surface, he's saying this to demoralize Batman's mission, what's implied in this exchange is how deep down, Strange needs to address does this so he can justify his mission to himself. He needs to formulate a plan and justify it in a way that would elevate him, to be recognized as the man who saved Gotham and for Batman's legacy to be undermined. Protocol 10 is a plan that generally makes sense for Strange to believe in and speaks to his worldview on criminals and initiating change. It's revealed that Strange was actually responsible for drugging Quincy Sharp's mind into abusing patients at Arkham Asylum, and used evidence of that as insurance that he'd remain loyal to his plan. Strange believes that forcing his will is the most efficient way to initiate proper change, and understands that can always be a temptation for people, depending on how bad the circumstances get. Through that understanding, he builds a narrative that the criminals at Arkham City were planning a breakout and got their hands on illegal weapons, which is a smart way to play on the fears of the public to get them on board with shooting down the criminals in Gotham, and letting the aftermath speak for itself when crime is less rampant and the streets are cleaner. This clearly details Strange's view on the efficiency of cruel punishment and makes for a believable plan as to how Strange will move the public towards his methodology. That way, he can be a tangible threat to Batman's mission to save Gotham and reform those who need help.
The world will not miss them. Why should you? Look at my work. You may have defeated Strange, but this is just the beginning. Come with me. We will wipe this world clean.
Ra's al Ghul gets introduced through Batman's desperation to survive, which I think is an effective way to have the two reunite, and provides Ra's al Ghul a reason to believe that Batman can be convinced into his ideas. Batman is in a position where he's dying before he can save Gotham, and Ra's al Ghul has been resurrecting himself for centuries so he can prolong his journey to save the world from evil. It creates a shared experience between the two, and showcases the advantages that Ra's al Ghul's methodology can offer, while also making sense of why he's desperate to have someone else take his place.
You're looking old, Ra's. What's really going on here?
I have used the Lazarus Pit too many times. I've lived 600 years. My mind and body cannot take much more. Each time I enter the pit, I am frightened of what will come out. Mother the Demon has allowed me to live for 600 years. Imagine the good that you could do with such a gift.
While Strange was envious of the good Batman could accomplish, Ra's al Ghul was looking for the best man for the job, which is an effective way to establish how Ra's al Ghul managed to manipulate Strange and Batman into playing his game. He plays on Batman's sense of justice, while playing on Strange's desire to replace Batman as Gotham's savior. It's a very effective twist because it manages to connect his side of the story with the larger Protocol 10 plotline, and demonstrates the weakness in Ra's al Ghul's side by showing how easy it is to drop loyalties when you firmly oppose second chances, and believe the only answer to obstacles in the mission is to kill. It plays into the cycle of violence instead of bringing peace, and just makes him another one of the corrupt people that he fights against. That irony strengthens the rivalry between Batman and Ra's. Batman recognizes that justice without mercy inevitably becomes tyranny, while Ra's al Ghul remains blind to that hypocrisy of his own methods.
You're wrong, Ra's. You've become what you've always fought against. And I will stop you.
The story also explores this through Talia, who represents the consequences of Ra's influence. A revealing moment is when he desperately uses his daughter to force Batman to kill him and take his place, so that he'd finally understand the value of Ra's methods. Bruce and Talia represent two choices, being to reject or accept Ra's way of living. Talia has spent her life under his influence, while Bruce has constantly rejected it. Their relationship becomes Batman's opportunity to save someone from following the same path Ra's has walked for centuries. That makes Talia's final decision more meaningful, where she chooses to save Bruce out of love.
I had to save you.
It's a small moment, but it's vital to the messaging of the story. By choosing Bruce over her father, Talia rejects the cycle of manipulation and violence that Ra's resorted to. It's a choice that reinforces one of Arkham City's central ideas. Real justice isn't about eliminating people. It's about refusing to sacrifice your humanity in pursuit of it. And by the end, Talia's last words show that she hasn't.
I'm sorry, beloved. I didn't know.
There's always a choice.
Batman Arkham City is ultimately a test of Batman's morality. Is it a strength or a weakness that Batman chooses mercy over killing? And I think the game provides plenty of reasons for and against Batman's morality. The plot of the game involves Batman and Joker being put on a strict timetable to find a cure. Joker tried to ensure Batman's cooperation by poisoning him and the rest of Gotham. And during the conversation, the game seems to imply that there's a part of Bruce that believes Gotham may be better if he and Joker were to go down.
So we both die. I'm fine with that.
Deep down, Batman knows that there's still an ongoing cycle between him and the Joker, and the cycle would end with one of them or the two of them gone, which is an interesting point that Hugo Strange uses against Batman, as it adds another challenge to Batman's morality. Would the Joker exist if Batman continued to exist? Does Batman invite more challenge than good in Gotham? The Joker is a really effective character to use because he shows every weakness of Batman's morality. The Joker isn't someone that's really going to change. Batman knows this. The Joker has broken out of prison many times and only caused more deaths. His motivations aren't sympathetic, and he knows exactly what he's doing. So sending him to prison again may simply be delaying the inevitable.
Every decision you've ever made ends with death and misery. People die. I stop you. You'll just break out and do it again.
But in the end, after everything Joker has done and taken from him, Batman claims that he still would have saved him.
Do you want to know something funny? Even after everything you've done, I would have saved you.
And on its face, Batman can seem illogical or misguided for his belief in his rules. This game isn't afraid to make it harder to defend Batman's moral code, but not only do his subsequent experiences make a strong case for it, but it also justifies why Batman would still believe in his morality in spite of everything. The primary opposition outlines the danger of not having a code when it comes to opposing crime. If we ran a society based on what's safer for the many, then we can easily end up compromising the good in humanity, which is why I think it's important to make a distinction between morality and practicality. Let's say we went with the approach of Protocol 10 and pretend that Hugo Strange and Ra's al Ghul were right. Would Gotham technically be safer if every criminal was shot down and killed? You can make that case and argue for its practicality in saving Gotham, but can you argue that's the moral way to save Gotham? Do those ends justify the means? To explore those answers, it's worth discussing what it takes to ensure the success of Protocol 10 to begin with. In order to have Arkham City approved, they needed to rely on force and corruption to enact their laws. The prison was rejected by the public and they targeted figures who would step in their way. These aren't actual criminals, just people who felt obligated to stand in the way of Strange's agenda and could change how things play out. Now, does that make it okay to throw them in Arkham City so they're subjected to fascism and violence? It's clearly not, but if we strictly care about what's safer for Gotham as a whole, you could argue that this is a necessary sacrifice for a cleaner city. And that's where the loss of humanity plays in. To enforce a society without mercy and without restraint, we'd have to sacrifice good people who happen to disagree with their vision. The will of the people is no longer a relevant factor in society, and if you think about it further, this could result in more division and create separate problems entirely. And depending on how bloody that divide gets, it raises the question as to how many lives are actually being saved as a result of compromising our humanity and restraint. What would happen if everybody thought like those who force their will onto others? We'd be left with a cycle of violence, something that looks very much like Arkham City. And to expand upon the justification of what's safer for Gotham, I think we can extend this to a variety of villains. As I've talked about, you can say the Joker is difficult to argue because of the kind of person he is and the danger he presents. But what about a more sympathetic figure like Mr. Freeze? He's not a man who wants to cause trouble, but he does so out of unfortunate circumstances. There is good in him and a path for redemption. Does he deserve to be killed just because it might make Gotham safer? It's a lot harder to say for a character like him, as if the risk he presents doesn't easily outweigh the value of giving him a second chance. It sacrifices a good amount of humanity and compassion to kill someone like him, and the way Mr. Freeze is characterized does a good job of portraying that idea, especially when he chooses to help Batman. It makes it harder to agree with Protocol 10 and easier to agree with Batman. Catwoman is another example of this. While she's a thief tempted by greed, she still has a heart for others, not just herself. Her involvement in Arkham City was initially for herself, but towards the initiation of Protocol 10, she's forced to make a choice between saving Batman or stealing from Strange to make money. She chose to help Batman so he can survive and save Gotham. Catwoman isn't inherently evil. Oftentimes, she steals for survival and doesn't hurt innocent people, and Batman is what inspires Catwoman to be better throughout the series. So is it justified to kill her just because that might make Gotham a safer place? If anything, that shows how complicated criminals can be. So what does this say for the other inmates thrown in Arkham City? Many of them could be in similar situations to Mr. Freeze or Catwoman. Does that mean they all need to die to ensure Gotham's safety? I don't think so, and I don't think Batman can bring himself to ever support that kind of justification. Batman believes that everyone is worth fighting for, and knows the consequences of basing morality purely on what's practical, and what he'd have to become to let go of his no-kill rule. Even if he's dealing with worse people as well, he knows that sheer practicality can't be a moral justification for him to cross that line. I think this is well established when he tries to have Oracle shut down Protocol 10, while Batman focuses on Talia.
I realize it is difficult, Sam, but you need to decide if one life is worth sacrificing to save 1,000.
Don't do this, Alfred.
Batman must save Gotham. I'm sorry, but deep down, you know I'm right.
This is a really strong moral challenge because it heavily limits Batman's options here, so it's not as easy for him to save everyone. Oracle can't shut down Protocol 10 without Batman's help, but Talia may die if Batman doesn't pursue her fast enough. It's believable as to why Batman would struggle here, especially since losing someone close to him is like losing his parents all over again. And it's believable why Alfred would argue that Bruce may need to accept a loss in order to save Gotham here, but Batman refuses to give in to an ultimatum, so he doesn't see it this way. He sees his choice as saving both.
Oracle, do not lose Talia's signal. Okay, the tower's locked down. No way in without the codes. One of the choppers will be carrying the master control program. I just need to find that chopper.
And that's what separates Batman from Ra's al Ghul. While Ra's al Ghul believes his way is just, he can only believe that by forcing the idea that it's all an ultimatum, that only the choice to kill can bring better results. Only by forcing his will can he save Gotham. But Batman knows it's more complicated than that. Something too complicated for any one person to decide. Batman doesn't just give in to these ultimatums, he fights for an alternative every time. And if that doesn't work out, he doesn't see that as a reason to drop his moral code and sacrifice his humanity. He sees that as a reason to hold on to it.
You're wrong, Ra's. You've become what you've always fought against.
And through all of Batman's experiences in the story, through all of the ways in which his ideas are challenged, the final test of his morality comes at the end of the story. But what's interesting here is that while Batman states that he would have saved the Joker, reaffirming his belief in his morality, he never really had the opportunity to choose. We saw him contemplating whether he should save the Joker before he actually did anything, which provoked the Joker into stabbing Batman, resulting him in losing that choice and left to ponder if any part of him would actually let the Joker die. And I think that ambiguity is what troubles Batman by the end of the story. The Joker is his ultimate challenge to his no-kill rule. It's hardest to argue why Batman can't make an exception this one time for him, even at the cost of his own humanity. He's different from every other villain. He's ultimately the most dangerous and the least redeemable. Batman could very easily have made an exception with him, but he'll never know if he would have, now that the choice was taken from him. And in the end, that's what really haunts him. Batman Arkham City is a captivating sequel to Batman Arkham Asylum. I very much enjoyed discussing the story. Afterwards, I'll be discussing Batman Arkham Knight, which I actually think is the best story in the series, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.